I just sang a song parody, Dad. Like Weird Al Yankovic.
Bobby, Al Yankovic blew his brains out in the late 80s after people stopped buying his records.
In a world where we as a society have instant access to almost any piece of music at our fingertips, it's pretty crazy to think that just 26 years ago, the music industry as we know it was rapidly heading towards collapse. In no small part thanks to a single program, no less. That, of course, being Napster. And LimeWire, and Kazaa, and Morpheus, but Napster was what really started the domino effect that led to where we are today. Created and launched in 1999 by two college students, in the span of just 2 short years, this application quickly became public enemy number 1 of the entire record industry, as it gave the average consumer the power to retaliate against rising costs of music on physical formats. And while it was shut down in July of 2001, Napster's impact on the music industry was irreparable, and it took the remainder of the decade to really flesh out what would become the streaming era. Now, there have already been a dozen video essays made on the rise and fall of Napster as a company by channels that can likely explain it much better than I can, but what I've always found to be the most interesting facet of this entire story is the reaction from the artists, and by extension, the industry itself. And believe me, they were pissed about it, which naturally just led to more ridicule from the general public. Yeah, it turns out taking legal action against not only the creators of these programs, but the private citizens that made up their user bases proved to be a tad bit unpopular. Crazy, I know. But in all fairness, you and I likely highly overestimate the salary of the average recording artist, but that doesn't change the fact it was still super satisfying to take the piss out of industry giants like Dr. Dre or Lars Ulrich of Metallica.
Unless you download it until it sleeps from Napster, then you're going to motherfucking jail. You're motherfucking meat.
But my personal favorite artist response to Napster was none other than that of Weird Al Yankovic. Now, Al's own personal views on the entire ordeal were a little down the middle. In a May 2000 Q&A posted to his website, he was quoted as saying, "On one hand, I'm concerned that the rampant downloading of my copyright-protected material over the internet is severely eating into my album sales and having a decidedly adverse effect on my career. On the other hand, I can get all the Metallica songs I want for free. Wow."
You Napster users, we'll see you in jail getting gang raped.
His 2006 album Straight Outta Linwood included a little ditty titled Don't Download This Song. Stylistically, it lampooned corny charity singles such as We Are the World, sarcastically lecturing the listener about the evils of music piracy, and how it prevents musicians from being able to afford basic necessities such as diamond-studded pools and gold Humvees. The song's music video, beautifully animated by Bill Plimpton, who also did the video for Kanye West's Heard 'Em Say, follows a young boy's arrest, imprisonment, escape, and death following him committing the unspeakable act of downloading a song and burning it to a CD, before it's revealed at the end to have all been a dream. Upon release, however, MTV outright refused to air the video. Not for any of the violent or intense imagery, no, but because in the first verse of the song, Al goes out of his way to list every major peer-to-peer file sharing program out at the time. In response, Al not only bleeped the names out as obnoxiously as he could, but he also put the uncensored version of the song on his MySpace page free for anyone to download. So it's obvious that in typical Weird Al fashion, he wasn't taking things too seriously. But beneath the surface, it might have been more of a thorn in his side than he let on. One of the biggest quirks within the file sharing community was the abundance of mislabeled songs. No doubt the most famous example of this is the Legend of Zelda song incorrectly credited to System of a Down.
My friend, he brought a CD over to my house that was basically a bunch of illegally acquired songs. And
Zelda?
The Legend of Zelda theme came
Wrong.
on here.
It's not ours.
But it was everywhere. If you were an obscure artist and your song shared even a slight resemblance to one by a major musician, just one mislabeled MP3 later and it might as well have been theirs to begin with. And nowhere was this more prominent than with Weird Al. With him being arguably the most well-known comedy artist of all time, almost every parody or joke song would eventually end up being labeled an Al song, regardless of quality or subject matter. He was far from the only one, as Adam Sandler, Tom Green, and even Matt Stone and Trey Parker would get songs incorrectly attributed to them, but Weird Al Yankovic, or Yankovic as he was commonly referred to as, was far and away the most prevalent. But unlike those four, whose entire thing was being crass and subversive, aggressive, Weird Al kept a very clean image. That's not to say he was entirely edgeless, but throughout his very lengthy career, he's always kept a style of humor that can be enjoyed by those of all ages. So naturally, a problem presented itself when not only was his revenue being affected by piracy, but a slew of obscene songs were being credited to him in mass. It also didn't help that a lot of them just plain sucked too. Lots of bad Star Wars parodies, or songs about weed, or songs about how Britney Spears is a whore and how NSYNC are all gay. A real time capsule of the early internet. In that same May 2000 Q&A, a fan asked Al if he was the artist behind a few of the songs commonly misattributed to him. He denied any involvement and replied with the following, quote, "This is actually my biggest problem with all those MP3 download services. A large number of the songs which are attributed to me are not by me at all. Some of the songs supposedly by me are in fact rather profane, and it disturbs me to think that some people might be led to believe that I'm responsible for them. Check the discography on my website if you're ever in doubt as to whether something is really a Weird Al song or not." Unquote. And so was born the Not Al List, a comprehensive document created by fans to catalog every song not made by, but frequently credited to, Weird Al Yankovic. Some of the songs on the Not Al list originate from fellow parody musicians, but I'd say the majority of them were created by regional comedy radio DJs all across the United States. Because of this, many of the songs only exist in the form of very low-quality radio recordings. This is only more prevalent the more obscure the songs get, as many were likely only aired a couple times and never saw release in any other capacity. A lot of these fall under the category of Lost Wave, a category of music where the origins, performer, and even in some cases original title are completely lost to time. I won't go over every single song on the list, since not only would it take forever, but plenty of these are just completely unremarkable. Instead, I've picked a handful I personally find to be the most interesting, and in some cases quite mysterious. So without further ado, these are selections from the Not Al list.
Elmo came with that AK-47.
When I was a kid growing up in the late 2000s to early 2010s, I was for whatever reason obsessed with the idea of Elmo being evil. And apparently everyone else my age was too, as it seemed to be its own thing entirely. I remember seeking out all those weird image macros of him and the rest of the Sesame Street characters edited to be all evil or gangsta. I was weirdly fascinated by them. This image in particular still kinda creeps me out to this day. But a video in particular that really stuck with me was one titled Nightmare on Sesame Street. It was based around the accompanying song, Elmo's Got a Gun, a parody of Aerosmith's Jamie's Got a Gun. As the title would suggest, it details Elmo going crazy and killing all the Sesame Street characters. Looking back at it, it's nothing too crazy, just a collage of clips edited to fit the lyrics of the song, but I'll be damned if it didn't freak me out as a kid, especially this one flash animated shot of a decapitated bloody Grover gliding across the concrete. Unsurprisingly, the song was incorrectly credited to Weird Al, and it, much like many of his real parodies, was my first introduction to the original track as a kid. Its actual origin, however, is from a Virginia radio show titled Tommy and Rumble, hosted by the titular Tommy Griffiths and Rick Rumble, and it was included on their 1998 compilation album Have a Cigar. But while we're on the subject of songs twisting less than beloved children's characters into something truly evil, Barney the dinosaur. Ever since his inception in the early 90s, people fucking hated this guy. Maybe it was because of how nauseatingly benign his entire persona was, but he just seemed to bring out the worst of people in ways that wouldn't be seen again until the release of Caillou years later.
Die, you commie fucker!
Don't kill my daddy! As long as the internet has been publicly accessible, people have been using it to unleash their inner hatred of this oversized purple beast. And over the years, an original song would make the rounds across various file-sharing platforms, being uploaded countless times to YouTube with God knows how many crude flash animations to boot. Titled Barney's on Fire, this one kinda speaks for itself. It's about Barney catching on fire. But, to its credit, after having listened through the entire Not Al list, I can confidently say that this is the only song on the list where the singer sounds even remotely similar to Weird Al.
Oh boy, Barney's on fire. It's what we've always desired.
But by Weird Al, it was not. It was written and recorded by a little-known artist by the name of Tony Mason, who according to his website was inspired to make it after having seen a sketch on Letterman titled Fireplace Full of Barneys. He recorded it, released it to Usenet, and later submitted it to the Dr. Demento show, on which it aired a couple of times. But more importantly, both this song and Elmo's Got a Gun would spread to sites like YouTube and Newgrounds, racking up millions of views and earning a special place in my heart, being forever burned into my psyche as shit I definitely should not have been watching at 7 years old. Huh.
Mr. President, why do you think the American public has continued to support you throughout these impeachment proceedings?
Probably because you're so fat.
In January of 1998, former President Bill Clinton would address the nation following a scandal involving him having a 2-year-long affair with his then intern, 22-year-old Monica Lewinsky.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
But alas, he did. This scandal would lead to his impeachment in December of that same year. The American public thought it to be a disgusting display of infidelity, dishonesty, and above all else, an abuse of power. At least, I think so. I wasn't really around back then. But the entire situation might as well have been a golden ticket to every hack comedian in existence. Obviously, I wasn't alive back then, so I can't speak about it firsthand, but looking back at pop culture of the time, goddamn was it all over the place. Like Clinton's semen all over Monica Lewinsky's dress. Clinton's alleged infidelity had been in the public consciousness for a few years up until that point, but after the scandal with Lewinsky broke, it was all you would ever hear about. And while nowadays the whole situation probably doesn't even crack the top 20 worst things Clinton's been accused of since,
Oh, Clinton, he murdered a guy.
at the time it was the funniest punchline anyone had apparently ever heard. And nowhere was this more prevalent than on the internet, and by extension, the MP3 trading community. There were God knows how many parodies made of Bill Clinton singing popular songs of the time, with the lyrics changed to be about his sexual encounters.
P-I-G-P-E-N-I-S, fooling around with chicks, what I do best. G-O-P, really mad cause I'm flagrant. Had sex in every room here but the basement.
Hell, half the time you would download a regular song off any of these services and it wouldn't even be a song. It would be whatever the fuck this here is.
My fellow Americans, I would once again like to say that I did not have sexual relations with that woman. I did, however, go to ifreeclub.com where they offer hundreds of free products.
Now, it goes without saying Weird Al didn't make these, but the crazy thing is we only know the original artists behind maybe 4 or 5 of them. But like I said, there were many of these made back in the day, so I guess it's not that surprising, all things considered, but it's still kind of interesting nonetheless. Finding a potential vocalist is made all the more difficult as they're done on a Bill Clinton voice, which is far from the hardest impression to pull off. Add also them only existing in the form of low-quality radio rips and thusly low-quality MP3s, and these might as well have only ever existed as apparitions of the early internet as opposed to having been made by any actual human. They're such a product of their time, and I'd be lying if I said they weren't just kinda gross to listen to now. Less so in the it's kinda fucked up that a scandal of a woman getting taken advantage of by the most powerful man in America was made a nationwide punchline way, though that's definitely part of it. It's mostly the whole I'm not really too into hearing about Bill Clinton's gross bent old man penis.
Getting sticky with it. Getting sticky with it.
Ew, but holy shit, can you imagine how much material they'd have to work with had they still been making these today? They'd be fucking insufferable.
Teenage girls buy my records. They don't know that I'm gay.
While we're on the subject of dated late 90s and early 2000s comedy, I'd like to dedicate this next section to a subset of songs that can only be described as gay parodies. That's exactly what they are, and they are exactly what you'd expect them to be. The 3 I'd like to discuss here are Gay Bandit, a parody of Juvenile's Back That Ass Up, Livin, Vida, Homo, an obvious Ricky Martin send-up, and Hooker on the Corner, a parody of Christina Aguilera's Genie in a Bottle. That last one isn't explicitly gay, but considering it's a male performer singing from the point of view of a female prostitute, it might as well be. We also have basically next to no information on the origins of all three of these mysterious songs. All three are likely radio recordings and sound about equal as far as production value goes. The most popular upload of Gay Bandit on YouTube is credited not to Weird Al, but South Park's Big Gay Al, as the song makes reference to the character's famous catchphrase,
"I'm super, thanks for asking."
A commenter recalls hearing it played on the radio in 1998 on KUBE 93.3 in Seattle, to which a couple users in the replies seem to corroborate. Now, this could be possible as the original song was released on Juvenile's album 400 Degrees in November of 1998, however, it wouldn't release as a single until June the following year. Plus, while the character said the line multiple times in his debut episode, Big Gay Al wouldn't become synonymous with saying "I'm super, thanks for asking" until the 1999 release of the South Park movie, in which he was given his own musical number based on this line. All of this leads me to believe that the date of 1998 is a misremembrance on the part of the commenter. The earliest known instance of the song being mentioned online is a Google Groups post of someone asking for the lyrics dated March 2nd, 2000. The last surviving original instance of the file itself is from July of 2002, and the earliest upload of the song to YouTube is a Yu Yu Hakusho AMV from 2006, uploaded by the user Fox24. For Livin, Vida, Homo, the earliest instance comes from a Newgrounds game from April of 2000 titled Dress Ricky Martin, which is about what you'd expect. It was originally thought to have been done by Nebraska radio hosts Todd and Tyler before they themselves confirmed to have had nothing to do with it, instead having created a separate parody of the same title. And if that wasn't enough, this Usenet post from July of 2000 mentions the discrepancies between it and a third version. Now, if you ask me, this one's so poorly produced, I don't think it being made by some rando online is out of the realm of possibility. He didn't even go out of his way to find an actual instrumental, he's just singing over the original song Christian style. I'll be surprised if it comes out that it was made by anyone other than some guy at home with a mic making an obvious pun that evidently two others had already thought of. As for Hooker on the Corner, who gives a shit? The earliest date is March of 2000. It's obviously a radio recording, as is obvious by a half second of what sounds like station ID audible at the very end after the beat cuts out. Not really much of anything to go off of here. The most interesting thing about it is that it was included on this Eminem bootleg and framed as a diss track from him to Christina Aguilera. And now's the time I admit I have basically nothing to say about this song and only included it as an amazing segue. Whoa!
Due to a massive amount of bootlegging and constant downloading, people are no longer buying CDs so that we can get paid for our fucking work.
When you're a kid, you think Eminem is the greatest battle rapper of all time. The absolute deadliest MC to ever touch the mic, with every one of his diss tracks more scathing than the last. But when you turn 14, you realize most of Eminem's targets are sitting ducks like Mariah Carey and fucking LFO. Remember LFO? No? Exactly. But one Eminem beef that people forget about is his short-lived feud with Weird Al Yankovic. In 2003, Al would release his album Poodlehead, for which he intended to release his parody of Lose Yourself, titled Couch Potato, as the lead single and video. However, while he approved of the parody itself, Eminem denied Al's request for a video, claiming it would hurt his image, which is quite hypocritical when taken into consideration M's own affinity for parodying pop stars in his videos, but you know, what do I know, right? In response, Weird Al would create one of his signature fake celebrity interviews with the rapper, this one featuring a little bit of underlying hostility.
It's ridiculous, it's repetitive, and it gets on my nerves.
Give me a break. I could only change the words. I couldn't change the music, too.
Now, what does this have to do with anything I'm about to talk about? Absolutely nothing, but there are some people out there who think Weird Al made an Eminem diss track. Will the real Slim Shady Please Shut Up is the placeholder name of not one, not two, but 3 Eminem parodies from the early 2000s. Real hard-hitting creative stuff here, guys. What's next? The fake Slim Shady? Oh wait, that actually exists. Well, fuck me. The first and most popular version of this parody is done by a female vocalist and is most commonly credited to Christina Aguilera, who M also had a blink and you miss it feud with. The second version is performed by a male and features many of the same lyrics as the first one for some reason, being credited to Weird Al and occasionally a country parody artist named Cletus T. Judd. The third one is by far the most mysterious, as it's less of a parody and more of an actual diss track. It's been credited to everyone from Vanilla Ice to Necro to Insane Clown Posse, and weirdly only exists on a mashup of all three versions of the song. Let's start with the first one, as like I said, it's by far the most infamous version. Besides Christina, the name most commonly attached to the parody was a woman named Emily Ellis, but recently, it's been miscredited to Nikki West of the Virginia radio show Wicker in the Morning due to the song's inclusion on their 2000 compilation CD. This, however, couldn't be further from the truth, as this parody was actually immensely popular back when it first came out, being played on radio stations nationwide. Many articles were written about the song, most of which debunking the rumor it was by Christina Aguilera, including one with MTV where she herself acknowledges the parody. But in almost every other article, it's said to have originated from Las Vegas radio station KLUC 98.5, and that the vocalist is none other than Emily Ellis. Visiting KLUC's website on the Wayback Machine, we can see that the song was available for download on the Morning Zoo section of the site as far back as September of 2000, and it should be noted that many of the articles written about the song go back even further. We don't have an exact month or date, but we can infer that the Wicker in the Morning compilation CD came out later in 2000, judging by the holiday theming of the cover art. It's most likely that it was only included because it was a very popular parody song at the time, not because they were involved with its creation. So, case closed. The male version of the song, however, is much trickier to figure out. On a 2009 upload of the song, one comment in particular caught my eye. It read simply, "No." It was written by Mike Spencer and performed by him and a rapper named Emily Ellis. Obviously, we know of Ellis's involvement, but Mike Spencer was a new name for me. After digging through some old websites and trade publications, I was able to identify Spencer as the former assistant program director of KLUC. Furthermore, a 2006 interview with Ellis and her sister seems to credit him as both writing and producing her version of the parody. I mentioned earlier that both the main male and female versions of the song share many of the same lyrics, so it would be entirely possible that he made his own version in addition to assisting in Ellis's. It's also worth noting that Ellis's version has an ad-lib from a male vocalist who sounds somewhat similar to the guy on the second one, though it's admittedly too brief to really tell. I was extremely confident in this lead until I was thrown a red herring in the form of a New York Daily News article from August of 2000. It claims the elusive Mike Spencer had the idea for the parody after hearing a similar version by a California radio DJ. This made things far more uncertain, as now it's entirely unclear if there even exists a version performed by Spencer, and if the male version is the original by this unnamed Cali DJ. Then again, if this was the original, that would mean he straight up plagiarized a good portion of the track for the Emily Ellis version. And something about that just kinda seems off. Regardless of whether or not it was done by Mike Spencer or this unknown California DJ, this is one of the stronger leads, and I don't think it can be dismissed. As for the diss track version, I was initially ready to dismiss it as yet another anonymous homemade song whose artist was lost to time, until I saw a comment under an upload of the track claiming it to be from someone named Mike Just Mike. I took to Google and attempted to find anything that might fit the bill, and lo and behold, I was able to find a single mention of a song titled Fuck the Real Slim Shady by a Mike Just Mike on a 2008 post on an Eminem fan forum listing various disses towards M. Unfortunately, this was all I could find, and I still had no way to confirm if this was the same song. I tried SoulSeek, but it yielded no results. But I had one last lead in my pocket. The Juggalos. Yeah, forget the teeny boppers or GLAAD or the angry parents. If there was any group that hated Eminem in the 2000s, it was the Juggalos. I hopped on over to an archive of the premier Eminem hate-turned-Trump billboard site, feminem.com, navigated to the downloads page, and as luck would have it, they had a working download of the song. I loaded it up, hit play, and It was a match. So, it wasn't South Park or Vanilla Ice or ICP, but some random fucking guy named Mike. Just Mike. Wow.
I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Oh man, that song was the coolest.
Yeah, we didn't write that song. I'd like to clear that up with the world right now.
As proven by the last entry, one of the most tried and true methods of song parody is to take an overplayed, annoying, and repetitive track that everyone's already sick of and make fun of it. And the 90s were prime for these kind of things, as the decade brought with it no shortage of annoying novelty songs.
Everybody hates the Macarena. Fuck the Macarena.
Aqua's 1997 earworm, Barbie Girl, was no different, getting its own now uncredited parody titled Ugly Girl. Again, real creative stuff here. The oldest surviving video featuring the song on YouTube is, get this, an AMV called The Ugly Girls of Anime, posted in October of 2005, which was actually created all the way back in May of 1999. Crazy. But the earliest mention of the song in general comes in the form of a Google Groups post dated November 6th, 1997, where a user can be seen asking for the file to the song. Later on in November of that same year, another user claimed to have heard it played on a local radio station. Additionally, a second post in January the following year made the same claim, stating the track made it into the top 10 most requested songs and stayed there for an entire week. Both of these users could be traced back geographically to Edmonton, the capital city of Alberta, Canada. Reddit user Broken Bricks took it upon themselves to contact an entire laundry list of radio stations in that area, as well as a few lesser-known parody artists. All who responded denied any involvement, though one reply from Calgary radio host Jerry Forbes was of note. He claimed it was most likely outsourced to a comedy service rather than having been recorded by an actual radio station. This claim was also supported by a couple users in a thread made to the Edmonton subreddit about the song. This makes pinning down an actual source all the more difficult, as not only are we no longer limited to a specific region, but as Jerry noted, there were a lot of these services back in the day. Not to mention many of them, such as the American Comedy Network, are long since defunct. Another potential but less likely lead is parody artist John Moser, whose website Killer Spam was cited as a source in a 2002 Google Groups post. I'd personally classified this as another misattribution, as this is literally the only mention of it being his on the entire internet, but who knows. Unfortunately, we also have no way of contacting him either, as he sadly passed away in 2023. And that's more or less where the search is at right now. For a more detailed breakdown of the search, I'd highly recommend checking out the r/uglygirl Lost Wave subreddit if you're interested.
It looks like a big bong. Now that's the ugliest damn bong I've ever seen.
Information regarding this final topic comes to us courtesy of our friends over at Lost Wave's Unfinest, whose YouTube channel and Discord server have been instrumental in the making of this video. The last song I'd like to talk about is a little ditty called the Bong Song, a parody of Sisqó's Thong Song that I'm sure you can guess is about smoking weed by way of a bong. Now, we have virtually no info on the origins of this elusive track, with the earliest date attached to any of the files being May 3rd of 2000. The singer refers to himself as Crisco, but this is obviously a play on the original singer's name as opposed to the performer. There was a thong song parody about the same topic by radio personality Brian the Beast London, however this version is very different from the one people are looking for. It was thought that the song was actually titled B-Song by an entity only known as WTF, however this ended up being a dead end as discrepancies in the file data proved it to not be the original instance of the song. It was also thought to be by an animator by the name of Chris Dill, however this was easily debunked by the fact he'd animated videos for a couple other comedy songs that he verifiably didn't create. Members of the Lost Wave's Unfinest server eventually managed to trace its origins to a group known as the HH Crew, and upon reaching out to one of the group's members, this seemed to be the case. However, upon comparing the two songs, it was immediately apparent that they were also very different, and the group member even replied back shortly after saying he spoke too soon. Eventually, sights were set on the Z100 Morning Show, a syndicated radio show whose 2001 compilation CD listed a Sisqó Bong Song as part of its track list. However, this too ended up being an entirely different rendition. The search was made even more complicated when users became aware of 2 other unidentified Bong songs, which were then dubbed Bong Song 2 and Bong Song 3, respectively. Lyrics to 3 more separate Bong songs were found across various early 2000s websites. However, the likelihood of any of these existing in an actual audio form is extremely slim. Mention of a Bong song played on an Atlanta radio station was found in an August 2000 newspaper, but more notably, a CD from Bay Area radio station KMEL caught people's attention, containing a Bong song by DJ duo Franzen and Trace Dog. The album, titled Carmen's Greatest Misses, was later purchased by a member of the Unfinest Discord server. In the meantime, 3 more versions of the Bong song were found on SoundCloud, all of which were clearly made much later than the time frame of the first one, proving parodists have gotten none the more creative since 2000. Now, what about that CD? Well, the member received the album, gave it a spin, and lo and behold, it wasn't the right song. So, let's recap. The Bong Song, not to be confused with Bong Song 2 or Bong Song 3, sometimes misidentified as B-Song by WTF, was not created by Chris Dill and is not the same version of the Bong Song as the one by Brian the Beast London, nor the Bong Song by Franzen and Trace Dog, but it does share some slight similarities to the Bong Song aired on Z100 Morning Zoo. But it's also verifiably not the same one by HH Crew, which begs the question, which Bong song is the first Bong song? Is this all a big coincidence, where the Bong songs ripping each other off, parasitically eating off of each other for a slight chuckle at one of the most obvious puns in human existence? Do stoners deserve to live? Did anyone find this bullshit funny to begin with? It was about this time I had a realization. None of this matters. None of this has any effect on my life, nor yours, nor anyone's. The quality of no one on planet Earth's life improves after knowing the original creator of something called the Bong Song. And all of a sudden, the grass got a little greener, the sky turned a more pleasant shade of blue. I was able to find inner peace. Follow my Twitter, join my Discord, check out my Instagram, and I'm out.